Chapter 15. Fooling poor old Jim. We judged that 3 nights more would fetch us to Cairo, at the bottom of Illinois, where the Ohio River comes in. We would sell the raft and get on a steamboat and go way up the Ohio amongst the free states and then be out of trouble. Well, the second night of fall begun to come on, and we made for a towhead and to tie to, for it wouldn't do to try to run in a fog. But when I paddled ahead in the canoe with the line to make fast, there weren't anything but little saplings to tie to. I passed the line around one of them right on the edge of the cut bank, but there was a stiff current, and the raft come booming down so lively she tore it out by the roots and away she went. I see the fog closing down, and it made me so sick and scared I couldn't budge for most a half a minute it seemed to me, and then there warn't no raft in sight. You couldn't see 20 yards. I jumped into the canoe and run back to the stern and grabbed the paddle and set her back a stroke, but she didn't come. I was in such a hurry I hadn't untied her. I got up and tried to untie her, but I was so excited my hands shook, so I couldn't hardly do anything with them. As soon as I got started, I took out after the raft, hot and heavy right down the towhead. That was right as far as it went, but the towhead weren't 60 yards long, and the minute I flew by the foot of it, I shot out into the solid white fog, and I hadn't no more idea which way I was going than a dead man. Thinks I, it won't do a paddle. First I know I'll run into the bank or a towhead or something. I got to set still afloat, and yet it's mighty fidgety business to have to hold your hand still at such a time. I whooped and listened. Away down there somewheres I hear a small whoop, and up comes my spirits. I went tearing after it, listening sharp to hear it again. The next time it come I see I weren't heading for it, but heading away to the right of it. And the next time I was heading away to the left of it, and not getting on it much either, for I was flying around this way and that the other, but it was going straight ahead all the time. I did wish the fool would think to beat a tin pan and beat it all the time, but he never did. And it was the still places between the whoops that was making the trouble for me. Well, I fought along, and directly I hears the whoop behind me. I was tangled good now. That was something else's whoop, or else I was turned around. I throw the paddle down. I heard the whoop again, and it was behind me yet, but in a different place. It kept coming and kept changing its place, and I kept answering, till by and by it was in front of me again, and I knowed the current had swung the canoe's head downstream. I was all right if that was Jim, not some other raftsman hollering. I couldn't tell nothing about voices in a fog, for nothing didn't look natural nor sound natural in a fog. The whooping went on, and it up a lot of snags that fairly roared. The current was tearing by them so swift. In another second or two, it was solid white and still again. I sat perfectly still then, listening to my heart thump, and I reckon I didn't draw a breath while it thumped and hundered. I just give up then. I know what the matter was. That cut bank was an island, and Jim had gone down to the other side of it. It warn't no towhead that you could float by in 10 minutes. It had the big timber of a regular island. It might be 5 or 6 miles long and more than half a mile wide. I kept quiet with my ears cocked. About 15 minutes, I reckon. I was floating along, of course, 4 or 5 miles an hour, but you don't ever think of that. No, you feel like you are laying dead still on the water, and if a little glimpse of a snag slips by you, don't think to yourself how fast you're going. But you catch your breath and think, my, how that snag's tearing along. If you think ain't dismissal alone some out in the fall that why by yourself in the night, you try it once, you'll see. Next, for about a half an hour, I whoops now and then, and last I hears the answer a long ways off, and tries to follow it, but I couldn't do it. And directly I judged I'd go into a nest of towheads, for I had little dim glimpses of them on both sides of me. Sometimes just a narrow channel between, and some and some that I couldn't see. I knowed was there because I'd hear the wash of the current against the old dead brush and trash that hung over the banks. Well, I weren't long losing the whoops down amongst the towheads, and I only tried to chase them a little while anyway, because it was worse than chasing a jack-o'-lantern. You never know the sound dodge around so, and swaps places so quick and so much. I had to claw away from the bank pretty lively 4 or 5 times to keep from knocking the islands out of the river. And so I judged the raft must be butting into the bank every now and then, or else it would get further ahead and clear out of hearing. It was floating a little faster than what I was. Well, I seemed to be in the open river again by and by, but I couldn't hear no sign of a whoop nowheres. I reckon Jim had fetched up on a snag, maybe, and it was all up with him. I was good and tired, so I laid down in the canoe and said I wouldn't bother no more. I didn't want to go to sleep, of course, but I was so sleepy I couldn't help it. So I thought I would take just one little cat nap. But I reckon it was more than a cat nap, for when I waked up the stars was shining bright. Fog was all gone, and I was spinning down a big bend stern first. First, I didn't know where I was. I thought I was dreaming. And when things began to come back to me, they seemed to come up dim out of last week. It was a monstrous big river here, with the tallest, the thickest kind of timber on both banks, just a solid wall, as well as I could see by the stars. I looked away downstream and seen a black speck on the water. I took after it, but when I got to it, it warn't nothing but a couple of saw logs made fast together. Then I see another speck and chased that. Then another, and this time I was right. It was the raft. When I got to it, Jim was sitting there with his head down between his knees asleep, with his right arm hanging over the steering oar. The other oar was smashed off, and the raft was littered up with leaves and branches and dirt. So she'd had a rough time. I made fast and laid down under Jim's nose on the raft and began to gap and stretch my fist out against Jim and says, "Hello, Jim. Have I been asleep? Why didn't you stir me up?" "Goodness gracious, that you, Huck? Hey, you ain't dead? You ain't drowned? You back again? It's too good for true, honey. It's too good for true. Let me look at you, chillin'. Let me feel you. No, you ain't dead. You back again, live and sound. Just the same old Huck. Same old Huck, thank to goodness. What's the matter with you, Jim? You been a drinking? Drinking? Has I been a drinking? Has I had a chance to be a drinking? Well, then, what makes you talk so wild? How does I talk wild? How? Why ain't you been talking about my coming back and all that stuff? As if I'd been gone away? Look, look, Finn, you look me in the eye. Look me in the eye. Ain't you been gone away? Gone away? Why, what in the nation do you mean? I ain't been gone anywheres. Where would I go to? Well, looky here, boss. Definitely something wrong with Big E's. Is I me, or who is I? Is I here, or what is I? Now that's what I wants to know. Well, I think you're here plenty enough, but I think you're a tangle-headed old fool, Jim. I is I? Well, you answer me this. Didn't you tow out the line in the canoe for to make fast the towhead? No, I didn't. What towhead? I ain't see no towhead. You ain't see no towhead? Looky here, didn't the line pull loose and the raft will go humming down the river and leave you in the canoe behind in that fog? What fog? What the fog? That fog that's been around all night. And didn't you whoop and didn't I whoop till we got mixed up in the islands and then one of us got lost and the other was just as good as lost? Casey didn't know where we was. He and didn't I bust up again and lot her damn islands and have a trouble time and Moss getting drowned? Now ain't that so, boss? Ain't it so? You answer me that. Well, this is too many for me, Jim. I ain't seen no fog, no islands, no troubles, no nothing. I've been sitting here talking with you all night till you went to sleep about 10 minutes ago, I reckon. I done the same. You couldn't have got drunk in that time, so of course you've been dreaming. Dad fetch it. How's it going to dream all that in 10 minutes? Well, hang it all. You did dream it because there didn't any of it happen. But look, it's all just a plain to me. I don't make no difference that plain it is. There ain't nothing in it. I know because I've been here all the time. Jim didn't say nothing for about 5 minutes, but I sat there studying over it. Then he says, but doll my cats if it ain't the powerfulest dream I ever see. And I ain't ever had no dream before that's tired for me like this one. Oh, well, that's all right, because a dream does tie your body like everything sometimes. But this one was a starving dream. Tell me all about it, Jim. So Jim went to work and told me the whole thing right through, just as it happened, only he painted it up considerable. Then he said he must start and interpret it because it was sent for a warning. He said the first towhead stood for a man that would try to do us some good, but the current was another man that would get us away from him. The whoops was warnings that would come to us every now and then, and if we didn't try hard to make out to understand them, they just take us into bad luck, instead of keeping us out of it. A lot of towheads was troubles we was going to get into with quarrelsome people and all kinds of mean folks, but if we minded our business and didn't talk back and aggravate them, we would pull through and get out of the fog into the big clear river, which was the Free States, and wouldn't have no more trouble. It had clouded up pretty dark just after I got onto the raft, but it was clearing up again now. Oh, well, that's all interpreted well enough as far as it goes, Jim, I says. But what does these things stand for? It was the leaves and rubbish on the raft and the smashed oar. You could see them first rate now. Jim looked at the trash and then looked at me, and back at the trash again. He had got the dream fixed so strong in his head that he couldn't seem to shake it loose and get the facts back into its place again right away. But when he did get the thing straightened around, he looked at me steady without ever smiling and says, what they'd stand for? I is going to tell you. When I got all wore out with work and with the calling for you and went to sleep, my heart was most broke because you was lost. And I didn't care no more what become of me in that raft. And when I wake up and find you back again, all safe and sound, the tears come and I could a got down on my knees and kissed your foot. Is so thankful. And all you was thinking about was how you could make a fool of old Jim with a lie. That truck die is trash, and trash is what people is that puts dirt on their head or their friends and makes him ashamed. Then he got up slow and walked to the wigwam and went in there without saying anything but that. But that was enough. It made me feel so mean I could almost kiss his foot to get him to take it back. It was 15 minutes before I could work myself up to go humble myself to a nigger, but I done it, and I warn't ever sorry for it afterward neither. I didn't do him no more mean tricks, and I wouldn't done that one if I'd knowed it would make him feel that way. Wow. That's a powerful chapter. You have to understand, this book was written a long time ago. Okay, culture was very different back then. I guess read one more chapter. Chapter 16. The rattlesnake skin does its work. We slept most all day and started out at night, and a little ways behind a monstrous long raft that was as long as a procession. She had 4 long sweeps at each end, so we judged she carried as many as 30 men likely. She had 5 big wigwams aboard, wide apart, and an open campfire in the middle, and a tall flagpole at each end. There was a power of style about her. It amounted to something being a raftsman on such a craft as that. We went drifting down into a big bend, and the night clouded up and got hot. The river was very wide and was walled with a solid timber on both sides. You couldn't see a break in it hardly ever, or a light. We talked about Cairo and wondered whether we would know it when we got to it. I said likely we wouldn't, because I had heard say there weren't but about a dozen houses there, and if they didn't happen to have them lit up, how was we gonna know we was passing a town? Jim said if the 2 big rivers joined together there, that would show. But I said maybe we might think we was passing the foot of an island and coming into the same old river again. That disturbed Jim, and me too. So the question was, what to do? I said, paddle ashore the first time and light showed, and tell them Pap was behind, coming along with a trading scow. And I was a green hand at the business. I wanted to know how far it was to Cairo. Jim thought it was a good idea, so we took a smoke on it and waited. There were nothing to do now but to look out sharp for the town, and not pass it without seeing it. He said he'd be mighty sure to see it, because he'd be a free man the minute he seen it. But if he missed it, he'd be in the slave country again and no more show for freedom. Every little while he jumps up and says, Josh is. But it weren't. It was jack-o'-lanterns or lightning bugs. So he sat down again and went to watching, same as before. Jim said it made him all over trembly and feverish to be so close to freedom. Well, I can tell you it made me all over trembly and feverish too to hear him, because I begun to get it through my head that he was most free and who was to blame for it. Why me? I couldn't get that out of my conscience. No, how, no way. It got to troubling me so I couldn't rest. I couldn't stay still in one place. It hadn't ever come home to me before what this thing was that I was doing. But now it did, and it stayed with me and scorched me more and more. I tried to make out to myself that I weren't to blame because I didn't run Jim off from his rightful owner, but it weren't no use. Conscience up and says every time. But you knowed he was running for his freedom, and you could have paddled ashore and told somebody. That was so. I couldn't get around that no way. That was where it pinched. Conscience says to me, what had poor Miss Watson done to you that you could see her nigger go off right under your eyes and never say one single word? What did that poor old woman do to you that you couldn't treat her so mean? Why, she tried to learn you your book. She tried to learn you your manners. She tried to be good to you every way she knowed how. That's what she done. I got to feeling so mean and so miserable I most wished I was dead. I fidgeted up and down the raft, abusing myself to myself, and Jim was fidgeted up and down past me. We neither of us could a keep still. Every time he danced around and says, There's Cairo, and it went through me like a shot, and I thought it was Cairo. I reckoned I would die off miserableness. Jim talked out loud all the time while I was talking to myself. He was saying how the first thing he would do when he got to a free state, he would go to saving up money and never spend a single cent. And when he got enough, he would buy his wife, which was owned on a farm close to where Miss Watson lived. And then they would both work to buy the two children. And if their master wouldn't sell them, they'd get an abolitionist to go and steal them. It most froze me to hear such talk. He wouldn't ever dare to talk such talk in his life before. Just see what a difference it made in him the minute he judged he was about free. It was according to the old saying, give a nigger an inch and he'll take an L. Thinks I, this is what comes of my not thinking. Here was this nigger which I had as good as helped to run away, coming right out flat-footed and saying he would steal his children. Children that belonged to a man he didn't even know, a man that hadn't even done me no harm. I was so sorry to hear Jim say that. It was such a lowering of him. My conscience got to stirring me up harder than ever until at last I says to it, let up on me. It ain't too late yet. I'll paddle ashore at the first light and tail. I felt easy and happy and light as a feather right off. All my troubles was gone. I went to looking out sharp for a light and sort of singing to myself. By and by one showed. Jim sings out, we safe, Huck, we safe. Jump up and crack your heels. That to be good old Cairo at last. I just knows it. I says, I'll take the canoe and go and see, Jim. It might be you know. He jumped and got the canoe ready, and put his old coat in the bottom for me to set on, and give me the paddle. And as I shoved off, he says, pretty soon I'll be shouting for joy, and I'll say it's all on account of Huck. It's a free man, and I couldn't ever been free if it hadn't been for Huck. Huck done it. Jim won't ever forget you, Huck. You the best friend Jim ever had, and you the only friend old Jim's got now. I was paddling off, all in the sweat to tell him, but when he says this, it seemed to kind of take the tuck all out of me. I went along slow then, and I weren't right down certain whether I was glad I started or whether I weren't. When I was 50 yards off, Jim says, there you goes, the old true Huck, the only white gentleman that ever kept his promise to old Jim. Well, I just felt sick. But I says, I got to do it. I can't get out of it. Right then along comes a skiff with two white men in it with guns. And they stopped and I stopped. One of them says, what's that yonder? A piece of raft, I says. Do you belong to it? Yes, sir. Any men on it? Only one, sir. Well, there's 5 niggers run off tonight up yonder above the head of the bend. Is your man white or black? I didn't answer up prompt. I tried to, but the words wouldn't come. I tried for a second or two to brace up and out with it, but I weren't man enough. Hadn't the spunk of a rabbit. I see I was weakening, so I just gave up trying and up and says, he's white. I reckon we'll go and see for ourselves. I wish you would, says I, because it's Pap that's there, and maybe you'd help me tow the raft ashore where the light is. He's sick, and so is Ma'am and Mary Ann. Oh, the devil! We're in a hurry, boy, but I suppose we've got to. Come, buckle to your paddle and let's get along. I buckled to my paddle, and they laid to their oars. Where he had made a stroke or two, I says, Pap'll be mighty much obleeged to you, I can tell you. Everybody goes away when I want them to help me tow the raft ashore, and I can't do it by myself. Well, that's infernal mean. Odd, too. Say, boy, what's the matter with your father? It's the other whale. It ain't anything much. They stopped pulling. It wasn't but a mighty little ways to the raft now, one says.
Boy, that's a lie. What is the matter with your pap? Answer up square now.
And it'll be the better for you. I will, sir. I will, honest. But don't leave us, please. It's gentlemen, if you only pull ahead and let me heave you the headline, you won't have to come near the raft. Please do.
Set her back. John, set her back,
Says one. They backed water.
keep away, boy. Keep to leeward.
Confound it. I just expect the wind has blowed it to us.
Your pap's got the smallpox, and you know it's
Precious whale.
Why didn't you come out and say so? Do you want to spread it all over?
Well, says I, a blubbering, I told everybody before, and they just went away and left us.
Poor devil. There's something in that. We are right down sorry for you,
But well,
hang it, we don't want the smallpox, you see. Look here, I'll tell you what to do. Don't you try to land by yourself, or you'll smash everything to pieces. You float along down about 20 miles, and you'll come to a town on the left hand side of the river. It will be long after sun up then, and when you ask for help, you tell them your folks are all down with chills and fever. Don't be a fool again and tell people guess what is the matter. Now, we're trying to do you a kindness. So you just put 20 miles between us? That's a good boy. It wouldn't do you any good to land yonder where the light is. It's only a wood yard. Say, I reckon your father's poor, and I'm bound to say he's in pretty hard luck. Here, I'll put you a $20 gold piece on this board, and you get it when it floats by. I feel mighty mean to leave you, but my kingdom it won't do to fool with smallpox, don't you see?
hold on, Parker, says the man. Here's a 20 to put on the board for me. Goodbye, boy. You do as Mr. Parker told you, and you'll be all right. That's so, my boy. Goodbye, goodbye. If you see any runaway diggers, you get help and nab them, and you can make some money by it. Goodbye, sir, says I. I won't let no runaway niggers get by me if I can help it. They went off, and I got aboard the raft, feeling bad and low because I knowed very well I had done wrong, and I see it warn't no use for me to try to learn to do right. A body that don't get started right when he's little ain't got no show. When the pinch comes, there ain't nothing to back him up and keep him to his work. And so he gets beat. Then I thought a minute and says to myself, hold on, suppose you done right and give up Jim up, would you feel better than what you do now? No, says I feel bad. I'd feel just the same way I do now. Well, then, says I, what's the use you learning to do right when it's troublesome to do right? Ain't no trouble to do wrong, and the wages is just the same. I was stuck. I couldn't answer that, so I reckon I wouldn't bother no more about it. But after this, always do whichever comes handiest at the time. I went into the wigwam. Jim weren't there. I looked all around. He weren't anywhere. I says, Jim, here I is, Huck. Is they out of sight yet? Don't talk loud. He was in the river under the stern oar, went just his nose out. I told him they were out of sight, so he come aboard. He says, I was listening to all the talk, and I slips into the river and was going to shove for show if they'd come aboard. Then I was going to swim to the raft again when they was gone. But Lawsy, how you did fool him, Huck. That was the smartest dodge, I tell you. Chill, I expect to save old Jim. Old Jim ain't gonna forget you for that, honey. Then we talked about the money. It was a pretty good raise, $20 apiece. Jim said we could take deck passage on the steamboat now, and the money would last us as far as we wanted to go in the Free States. He said 20 mile more weren't far for the raft to go, but he wished we was already there. Towards daybreak we tied up, and Jim was mighty particular about hiding the raft good. Then he worked all day fixing things in bundles and getting all ready to quit rafting. That night about 10 we hove in sight of the lights of a town a wave down in the left-hand bend. I went off in the canoe to ask about it. Pretty soon I found a man out in the river with a skiff setting a trot line. I ranged up and says, "Mister, is that town Cairo?" "Cairo? No, you must be a blamed fool. What town is it, mister?" "If you want to know, go and find out. If you stay here bothering around me for about a half a minute longer, you'll get something you won't want." I paddled to the raft. Jim was awful disappointed, but I said never mind. Cairo would be the next place, I reckoned. We passed another town before daylight, and I was going out again. But it was high ground, so I didn't go. No high ground about Cairo, Jim said. I haven't got it. We laid up for the day on a towhead tolerable close to the left-hand bank. I begun to suspicion something. So did Jim, I says. "Maybe we went by Cairo in the fog that night," he says. "Don't let's talk about it, Huck. Poor niggers can't have no luck. I always suspected that rattlesnake skin weren't done with its work. I wish I never seen that snake skin, Jim. I do wish I never laid eyes on it. It ain't your fault, Huck. You didn't know. Don't you blame yourself about it." When it was daylight, here was the clear Ohio, water inshore. Sure enough, and outside was the old regular muddy. So it was all up with Cairo. We talked it all over. It wouldn't do to take to the shore. We couldn't take the raft up the stream, of course. There weren't no way but to wait for the dock and start back to the canoe and take the chances. So we slept all day amongst the cottonwood thicket so as to be fresh for the work. And when we went back to the raft about dark, the canoe was gone. We didn't say a word for a good while. There weren't anything to say. We both knowed well enough it was some more work of the rattlesnake skin. So what was the use to talk about it? It would only look like we was finding fault, and that would be bound to fetch more bad luck, and keep on fetching it too, till we knowed enough to keep still. By and by we talked about what we better do, and found there weren't no way but just to go along down with the raft till we got a chance to buy a canoe to go back in. We weren't going to borrow it when there weren't anybody around, the way Pap would do, for that might set people after us. So we shoved out after dark on the raft. Anybody that don't believe yet that it's foolishness to handle a snakeskin after all that snakeskin done for us will believe it now if they read on and see what Mo had done for us. The place to buy canoes is off the rafts laying up at shore. But we didn't see no rafts laying up, so we went along during the 3 hours and more. Well, the night got gray and rather thick, which is the next meanest thing to fog. You can't tell the shape of the river. You can't see no distance. It got to be very late and still, and then along comes a steamboat upriver. We lit the lantern and judged she would see it. Upstream boats didn't generally come close to us. They got out and follow the bars and hunt for easy water under the reefs. But nights like this, they bull right up the channel against the whole river. We could hear her pounding along, but we didn't see her good till she was close. She aimed right for us. Often they do that and try to see how close they can come without touching. Sometimes the wheel bites off a sweep, and then the pilot sticks his head out and laughs and thinks he's mighty smart. Well, here she comes, and we said she was going to try and shave us, but she didn't seem to be shearing off a bit. She was a big one, and she was coming in a hurry, too, looking like a black cloud with rows of glowworms around it. But all of a sudden, she bulged out, big and scary, with a low row of wide open furnace doors shining like a red hot teeth, and her monstrous bows and guards hanging right over us. There was a yell at us and a jingling of bells to stop the engines, pow wow of cussing and whistling of steam. And as Jim went overboard on one side and not on the other, she was coming smashed straight through the raft. I dived, and I aimed to find the bottom too, for a 30-foot wheel had got to go over me, and I wanted it to have plenty of room. I could always stay under the water a minute. This time I reckon I stayed under a minute and a half. Then I bounced for the top in a hurry, for I was nearly busting. I popped out to my armpits and blew the water out of my nose and puffed a bit. Of course there was a booming current, and of course that boat starting her engines began 10 seconds after she stopped them, for they never cared much for resting it. So now she was churning along up the river, out of sight in the thick weather, though I could hear her. I sung out for Jim about a dozen times, but I didn't get any answer, so I grabbed the plank that touched me while I was treading water, and struck out for shore, shoving it ahead of me. But I made out to see that the drift of the current was towards the left-hand shore, which meant that I was in the crossing, so I changed off and went that way. It was one of those long, slanting 2-mile crossings, so I was a good long time in getting over. I made a safe landing and clumb up the bank. I couldn't see but a little ways, but I went poking along over rough ground for a quarter of a mile or more. Then I run across a big old-fashioned double log house before I noticed it. It was going to rush by and get away, but a lot of dogs jumped out and went to howling and barking at me, and I knowed better than to move another peg. Oh wow, okay, I guess they're captured. I guess I'll just leave it here. Let's see. How long have I been reading? For over 30 minutes, I'm assuming. It's, all right, I'll just stop it here. Well, if you guys enjoy me reading, you guys are free to subscribe and like the video, please, and appreciate it. I'll continue to read as much as I can because I want to finish this book and I'm gonna save all these chapters in the playlist. All right. Well, buenos días, buenas noches, 晚上好, 早上好. Good night.